a young generation to have access to maybe in these maybe equipment or even stories that we are trying to push local stories. So I think that's the role I'm playing in the art industry currently.
If we're to move to the next question, who do you think currently shapes the narrative around African creativity, and do you see your work as reinforcing or differing from that narrative? Let's start from Ms. CV.
Please repeat the question.
Who do you think currently shapes the narrative around African creativity? So, and then do you see like your work as enforcing that narrative, or do you think that you're not really like enforcing it and differing from the narrative?
That's a good one. I think for a long time, as Africans, our stories have been told for us and not maybe in the best lens. And so I feel the importance of this panel, just being here and these creatives, is that we are somewhat removing ourselves from that narrative and speaking about our own stories in the way that we see them. So no one can tell you about yourself, or no one can tell you your story. No one can tell your story better than you, because you know the experiences you've had. So I feel like I'm not really contributing to it, but rather I'm setting myself apart to show that there's a different side to it. There's a different lens to us. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because stories were told on the Western, and they were told by, I would say, white people. Forgive me for that, but yeah, we grow up in being very afraid as African to tell our stories, or not having access to the right equipment to do that. I think theater, it's slowly growing, especially in our country, because of such things. We don't have theaters in the kingdom, so our stories are not being told, especially by us. So we happen to hear about ourselves, and then you ask yourself, but that didn't happen like that. You understand? Yeah, I think that's.
Very much. Just a follow-up question for that question. I think the first part says, who do you think currently shapes the narrative around African creativity? And by your answers, I've gathered that for a very long time, we haven't been the one telling our own stories, and we're finally getting a chance. I wanted to ask, do you guys think that how we're doing it now is like the right way, or is there anything that you can advise like young creatives to tell their story better and help it get out there clearer?
I'd like to first give examples of people in the creative industry who I think are sort of maintaining the culture, African culture, and taking it to the world. And I'd also like to speak on how they're an inspiration not only to me and to the youth. I'd like to give examples of choreographers like Bumel, who created Ama Ballet, which is basically a merge of Amapiano and ballet, which is a Western technique in dance, basically. And I think him doing that and taking the world by storm, it is now in the UK and everyone has obviously been exposed to it. Him doing that has been a great inspiration, not only to the youth, but to me as well as a choreographer, because being able to see someone on TikTok merging a South African genre with a ballet, something that hasn't been done before, is very inspirational, and it also inspires us to be creative in what we do. Whether Gukitsa and Yabo, I usually see Emma Kosigati trying to add different dance moves ekgitseni, and I think that's really creative. And another example I'd like to use in the fashion industry is Tebe Makuku, who has done Paris Fashion Week, but the clothes that he does, it's not only just cultural, but I think he had this collection where they were Swati imprints, they were Ndebele imprints, and basically different prints on the different types of clothes in his collection, and that was to display the culture that we have in Africa. And yeah, I think those are two very big inspirations. And I'd say a way in which I'm trying to reinforce that is the avenues or the choices that I choose to take when it comes to my designs. So when I design ematebesha, I try to deviate from the very large, I'm not sure if you know the large beadwork that has been introduced lately. I try to maintain the indigenous traditional beads to basically design ematebesha. And when I crochet, I always try to use stitches or patterns or colors that link to the Xhosa tradition, or yeah, I think it's...
Thank you so much.
I love that. I actually much prefer those ematebesha with the smaller beads myself. What I'll add to this is that maybe just speaking from a culinary lens, particularly with this festival coming up, Luju Food and Lifestyle Festival, the overarching theme there is a return to the African future. And essentially we're using food as a conversation piece. It's one of the oldest creative expressions, in African culture. And it determines, or rather gives us a direction of how we can get back to our roots and how we can tell our own stories. And it begins with us decolonizing our palate. It speaks to us, we've kind of changed and recoined some of the terms like AI, for us that means ancestral. And we go back to that ancestral way of doing things because, as I mentioned earlier, this is a remembering of who we are as Africans. It's not something that we have to start with in a gallery exhibition. The stories are being told on the ground. When we work with food, when we work with indigenous knowledge keepers, we're working with the gogos in the community that have always used traditional ingredients that are now maybe in a very contemporary lens are being labeled as poverty foods. Those are not, and they've been sustenance for us for generations and generations. These are foods that are cyclical. That's how we were meant to live. That's how we've always lived as Africans. And these are the stories that we've always told. And those are the narratives that we have to be exploring. And I think it's really interesting to see that now that we are reclaiming that identity as Emaswati, as Africans, to tell our own stories, to be able to say, we can go back and sit around the fire. We've always done that. In the world of social media and digital migration, that is still relevant. That's still actually predominantly how a lot of young people in rural communities are still taught. That's how the information is being filtered down. So we just need to go back to that, return to that, because it informs the future of Africa. So that's how we explore it from a culinary lens within the Luju Food and Lifestyle Festival. And this year, we're exploring the theme Nguni Foodways. And it's looking at, Bantu-speaking people of Southern Africa and seeing how food has shaped our heritage and how and our identity. And we hope, you'll be able to come, some of you to be able to explore those themes. We have panel discussions at the Food Indaba where we invite culture experts, chefs, farmers, herbalists, all of the botanists, people that are really telling these stories from the lens of, returning to the soil and coming back into ourselves as Africans without, looking at a very international validation, for who we are. So I'm really happy we're having these discussions because it does speak to us reclaiming our stories and our heritage as Africans.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the next question. What would it look like for Africans to define and uphold our own standard of excellence in art, culture, and leadership in the near future?
Please repeat, okay?
What would it look like for Africans to define and uphold our own standard of excellence in art, culture, and leadership?
I think to me it means being able to afford to do things, especially being able to fundraise ourselves as African to tell our own stories. Because what you get now, we are not able to get funding to tell our stories. Funding comes with, I think it comes with, you need to tell the story this way. You need to collaborate with so a foreign or someone from a different country. So I think for me, if we are able to find our stories, then we will be able to tell our stories the way we want to tell it. Yeah.
Anyone have anything to add?
Please repeat the question.
What would it look like for Africans to define and uphold our own standard of excellence in art, culture, and leadership?
I'd say there's a very important point that Mr. Sfiso Ngumalo made on Wednesday during the opening assembly, and it was about authenticity and being able to carry your culture with you wherever you go. And I think it's important that whether we're in leadership positions or working with other people in the Western industry or whatever, we maintain or we do things that we are doing linked to our culture the way that we would do it in the places that we're from. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, just being authentic and being true to where you're from and how you do what you do. And yeah, I think that's...
If I can add, I think at our core as Africans, there's Ubuntu. So be it in leadership, you lead ngebumfu. Be it in art, anything that we do, the main and our core is Ubuntuism for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with that because I feel like our standards should really emerge from our own values.
Yeah.
And when you speak of Ubuntu, I mean, for me, it's not only just caring for each other. It goes back to community. How do we create opportunities for young people? How do we care for the land? How do we preserve our language? And that's how ultimately we create a standard that meets us on the same level that we want to be able to make an impact. Yeah.
Could someone, like, for people who might not know, could someone please explain what Ubuntu is?
I think Ubuntu, I will say it's an African, from way back type of living, because it's sort of like we care for each other, we respect each other. So I think before even, what's this? Even, because now everyone has rights and whatnot, even when rights before rights. So African, we used to live with respect, you know. We used to care for each other. That's Ubuntu. Yeah.
I think to add, so obviously it's a direct translation of I am because we are, you know. And growing up, there was never, in my experience, I'm sure Koje, you'll attest to that. When we grow up in a homestead setting, you know, you could go and eat at your grandmother's house and you would be taken care of by your aunt or your uncle. There was just never really that isolated parenting, you know, where your mother or your father had to only take care of you. It was just a community thing. So even as a child in the community, you're raised by the community. Community members have a right to correct you. You know, they don't need to seek out your parents to basically tell you that, no, you're not doing things right. Yeah. So Ubuntu is just that communal spirit is how I see it, yeah.
I think if I can add also, it's honoring even the place that you're in. So going back to what you were saying, the soil, the trees, indalo, like nature, yes, it's not just person-centered, but holistic in its approach. Yeah.
Thank to the next question. How could collaboration between African artists and other non-Western creatives have a meaningful global impact? Okay. How could collaboration between African artists and other non-Western creatives have a meaningful global impact?
Okay, I think for me, it goes in different forms because collaboration means that now you have a wider audience. For example, I make an example. If a Swatini crew were to do a film in Brazil with the Brazilian crew, so now we have two audience, African and then Brazil side. You understand? So for me, it means you reach more when you collaborate. You have more access to things when you collaborate. Yeah.
I feel like I'm speaking too much. So I think going back to Ubuntu and I mentioned Guni Foodways, what you realize is that we're so much more alike, than we think. Even when you look at, sort of like Latin American countries or indigenous America, even Asia, we have a very common thread of colonialism, or even just carry histories of resilience and ancestral knowledge. If you meet someone from Brazil, I know there was a collaboration between Tobile Makoyane with a Colombian artist and who plays a similar instrument to Makoyane, right? And through that interaction or that collaboration, we realized that we are very similar, right? And also, if you think about the migration of Africans to other countries, whether through the slave trade or in other ways, there's an exportation of culture and there's emergence of that. So when we come together, we will realize that there's a really strong melting point or meeting point where we can foster collaboration. So I think there's enormous potential there because we're so much more similar than we think.
To add on to her point about similarity, I think collaboration is it's a connecting form, So if we were to collaborate with someone from Latin America, like they said, or Asia, it's automatically unifying. So I think it would have a great global impact because people would be able to see the unity in which we have and our likeness that we have. And I think that could change perspectives and how we interact with each other as human beings in the different continents that we're from. Yeah.
I want to ask if we are to change the question to say, how could collaboration between African artists and Western creatives have meaningful global impact? Would your answers be any different? Because we've been saying with non-Western creatives, so we're talking about maybe Latin Americans and Asians, and you're saying that the collaboration is good because it brings us together. So if we are collaborating with Western creatives, is that also, would you have the same answer to the question? Yes.
Yeah, I'd have the same answer because I think it's really about expanding the conversation. That's already there. And it's not to say we have to work in isolation. We live in a global community now where we have sort of instant communication through social media or whatever that is. We have a wider reach. And I think we cannot isolate Western communities because globally, I feel like everybody has to integrate. I don't think we have to work in isolation. So my response will be the same. And I think there are already ongoing collaborations with Western communities. I'll make an example of the current World Cup. That is very inclusive. There isn't anything to say, because you are coming from the West or from Africa, there is no place for you here. There is space, we all have an opportunity to come together and explore synergies. So I think my answer would be exactly the same. It's not about race, it's not about a geographical sort of makeup. we have the advantage now that we can transcend that time and space and be able to collaborate, even just digitally, with someone who's not even here, who's in America, who's in the UK, in Europe, wherever that is. So yeah, I would say my response is the same, because it is about us as people without any divide, you know. Yeah, I don't know, Jens, what you wanted to add?
My answer is similar, but I think I'd like to speak from a perspective of, not my own perspective, I'd like to speak from a perspective of someone who still regards the Western world as just colonial countries. I think us collaborating with Western countries, for someone who still has that perspective and the pain or whatever, of the history that it holds, I think it would be very inspirational and impactful. It would look as though we are sort of establishing ourselves not only in the world but also in the Western world, just being able to work with them closely and collaborate with them. And also it would, from someone else's eyes, it would look as though we are taking our power back, but it also depends on how that would be. Like if you're working with someone in the Western world and you're conforming to the sort of standards that are had in the West, then it would just be like you're not preserving where you're from. But if linked to what we have been discussing of preserving culture, if you do it in that way, then it would be viewed in the way of you're taking the power back, and yeah, it would be very inspirational in that sense and perspective.
She sort of said what I wanted to say. So I think for me, just to add on, as long as we're collaborating in a respectful way and we're honored in our differences, I think then there's a lot of room to explore and be authentic and be beautiful, because we don't live in silos, so we are communal. So I think there is room, definitely room for collaboration, just as long as it doesn't degrade the next person while respectful of each other. Yeah.
Earlier, we spoke about Africans defining and upholding our own standard of excellence. Like, are you guys optimistic about the role of AI in this, or do you have any thoughts on the role AI might play in that?
I think it depends how you view it, because AI, I think for me, is here just to make things fast, but it's not here to replace us. For example, yeah, I can see films in AI, but I like when I'm watching a film in AI, it doesn't feel, it's not the same feeling like when I'm watching someone's film, you understand? So the feeling is different, and also with us, we are telling stories from our hearts, you understand? So there's that huge difference. So for me, I'm not scared about my career in terms of AIs here, but I use AI just to make things fast for me, especially AI is able to do things in order, which is something that I myself maybe didn't know how to do, you understand? So it's able to make my presentation look proper. I compliment that.
To sort of add on to his point, but also mention something that digresses a bit. I also agree, especially in music, I'm not worried about AI taking over, because as musicians, you can hear the difference. You can hear that this is AI. Like it sounds very different and unrealistic. So I don't think that's something that musicians have to worry about. But I do think that AI overall is diminishing the creativity that we have as human beings. When it comes to things like posters, the format is the exact same. You can see that this is an AI poster, just in the format and the way it has been designed. And yeah, I think that's something that I'd say I'm worried about. I think it's definitely taking away a lot of creativity that we have as human beings, and that's not a good thing.
I mean, I go back to AI as ancestral intelligence as opposed to artificial. Yeah, I think to echo what my fellow panelists have mentioned is that it's really in the way that you use it, isn't it? And I think for me, I feel like it's very useful, yes, but it still requires my intelligence, my ancestral intelligence, because I have to input that to get the output, right? And so there's still so much value in what you possess, in what you have. Like, your talent is your talent, your gift is your gift, your intellect is your intellect, and you have to inform what AI can generate. So I think it's just putting a lot of value in what you have to put into it, right? But I definitely agree that it is convenient, and it does help speed things along. But I think we just mustn't lose our sense of creativity, you know. And for me, what that looks like is I'm not going to just sit behind a desk and do research on plants. I want to go and do my forages. I want to do plant meditations. I want to do forest baths. I want to firmly, you know, put my feet on the land, because there's so much information download that you get just from nature alone, that AI cannot give you. So I think as we explore those avenues, we shouldn't lose sight of what we already have, of the information that is already innate and that is around us, that we need to protect that indigenous knowledge needs to be protected as well, not simply archived, but transmitted. And and I think we shouldn't shy from AI, but let's be very mindful of how we use it in a way that doesn't diminish our own, you know, sort of creativity.
Earlier you spoke about how there is a lack of funding in the creative space, and here there is a question that speaks to that. What role should funding play in shaping creative industries, and is it currently supporting or limiting creative freedom? But I'm sure that you did say it is limiting already, so.
Yeah, I think it's limiting because funding comes with conditions, like I said before. So, for example, I can see Standard Bank is here. If I were to collaborate with Standard Bank, they will want to have an input in the product that I want to, maybe I want to tell a film, you understand? So now they will tell me this is what we want to promote, and then this is how your film should go because you have invested in your film. So now it's not my film, you understand? Because now I've collaborated with them and I need the funding, I need to tell this film. Yeah, and then now it's limiting my creativity because this is not how I wanted to voice my film, but because of how, or even me introducing Standard Bank, it's a different story now.
I want to speak to Standard Bank. Obviously, Standard Bank is our primary sponsor for the Luji Food and Lifestyle Festival, and I think not in their defense, but just I do agree. You know, I've worked in the NPO space in community development, and I kind of moved out of that space in feeling that, you know, you do sometimes cultivate a sense of dependence sometimes from communities because they look externally to be able to do things. And what I have found, you know, is that when you do have the right kind of support, like a Standard Bank, for the festival that I'm involved in, we create the narrative, we create the concepts, and they come and say, well, how can we support that financially? And I think that's so important because you don't want to lose the essence of what you're trying to communicate, or what you're trying to do, the impact that you want to have, just because funders have their own, you know, boxes they want to tick. So essentially, you want to have funders that are helping, supporting the direction that you are taking rather than informing it, rather than dictating it, because that can dilute the essence of your art, of your creativity, of your project. And I think we definitely need to start looking inward. There are a lot of times that we have projects or things that we want to do, and we feel we can't do it because the funding is a barrier. I think that we tend to rely too much on funding outside of it, and I think the system that we need to really challenge is our own government system. It's like, how is it supporting local artists, you know, besides I know there's arts and culture, right? And I don't know how much funding or support you get from there. But I think those are the institutions we really should be looking at. They need to create a platform and the foundation that artists need to just basically catapult their careers, you know, so that we don't have to look outward and to individual funders, because then there are those conditions. So I think that's what we really have to challenge, to say local institutions, local government, how are you supporting the creative arts? You often find that institutions like, I'll make an example of Bushfire as a festival, they now bear a lot of that burden of trying to give platforms for artists, trying to promote artists, creating development initiatives for artists. And if they don't book local artists, it's you know what I mean? So, and they can't be carrying that load. You know, the banks shouldn't be carrying that load. They are financial institutions at the end of the day. You know, they can give you a loan. They are a business, but I think we do need to look at how do we stimulate support and accountability with our local government. Yeah.
I also believe that funding, I don't know whether it's from the government or from a financial institution, it should be sort of structured or kept in mind that you're working with a creative that has many ideas. So sometimes it can be very limiting, like Gorje said, and I think if the financial institution or whoever is providing funding just kept in mind that this is a creative and this might not be a lot to work with, but also it is also up to us to be able to voice that out and also be able to also set our terms of, you know, us whether being able to work with what they're going to give us or if it's just not going to work out. But yeah, I think it can be very limiting, and people should just keep in mind that creatives have a lot of ideas. So we need funding or money to work with in order to execute those ideas that we want to.
They've said everything. I think to add, it's very important that you know what you stand for as an artist, so that should you find funders, you know that they're aligned with your principles or your guidelines and not have to compromise too much, because compromise is there, but not too much. I think, yeah, pretty much.
Thank you very much. Do you have
Yeah, I think the last one, it will be, I agree with us challenging the government structures, because I feel like our government doesn't understand what they should fund, especially in the art space. I don't know if it's ignorance or what, but as we speak now, we don't have a funding that focus on creatives creating their art. You just applying and then getting money and go and execute, you understand? So I've seen that in SA, where like they have their NFVF, where they can apply. You want to go to an international festival, you apply for a fund. You want to do master class, you want to do a film, you want to do a festival, you can apply. But this side is just a different story, you understand? So I feel like I don't know what's happening with our country, especially the government side. Yeah.
Next question is, do you guys have any advice for young creatives, or like any experiences that you've had that maybe you can tell other people, like things they should avoid in their journey, or things that they should do, or standards and ideologies that they should have?
I can start. I think for me, it has been a challenge to tell stories and to be a filmmaker in the kingdom. Like I say, there are not supportive systems. Like even myself, I don't know how did I become a filmmaker even now, you understand. But I remember when I started, I wanted to be an actor actually. So what happened to me with my friends, we usually do dramas at church and whatnot. But at some point, I feel like, guys, we need to be out there because the internet was coming. And I think it was around 2019 or 2020. That's when everything just started to be. So we started posting videos of ourselves using our phone to capture. So it started as skits, you understand. And then all of a sudden, I saw that I have a creative in writing. And then I started writing stories. And then it happened that I started being part of crew, volunteering to be just behind the scene and learning how things are being done. So I remember in 2021, we're shooting a series. I was just behind the crew. And then we shot that series. We didn't have budget. We're just shooting. And all of a sudden, everything crashed when we were on post-production. We lost the whole footage. So I feel like that was a test for me to be sure if I wanted to film or not. I remember after that, in 2022, I did a short film called Lifalam. When I released that short film, it went viral in the kingdom, and then it was selected for the EU European Film Festival, which was hosted at Alliance Versus. I think by that time it was coming for the first time in Eswatini. Just in that moment, everything just started to show it's now I'm moving the right direction. And then in 2023, I was selected to go to Germany because of that short film that I remember doing that short film. I have 5 Malangen in my pocket, like I was broke. And then I spent a day just shooting a 10-minute short film because I understood the story and whatnot. And I knew that I don't have a budget, so I'll use a limited crew and a limited cast. So we had like 3 cast and 3 crew members. So it's the sound guy, the camera operator, and someone was just holding a reflector. So we just shot the thing, and then it made a lot of things for us. That film went to a Waterloo Film Festival in Durban. It also showcased, I think last year Bushfire was having short film showcasing, so it was part of that showcasing. Yeah, so I feel for me, it's about starting. Like you can talk, you can have the vision, but if you don't start, nothing will happen. I'm a YouTuber student. I never went to varsity for filmmaking. So I've been learning from YouTube, and today I'm part of the ESCOM Kwasuka Sugela project, which is a project that has been sponsored by ESCOM. We are creating short films, and we are here to create a series that 100% produced by a Maswati and then acted by a Maswati. Yeah.
I think for me, I agree with what he says. I think start with what you have. What I have is community. I have friends, I've got family that are supportive. And so how I started was with curiosity, just because I'm also self-taught, I'm still learning. So when there's a series that I did, it's called Enlightenment Series. And when we did that, I used my sister as a muse. I used a friend, 2 friends. And that series of pictures opened like a door for me where I found myself exhibiting in South Africa, Smoking Dragon, the 10-hour show by Bonolo, Something Brown. So I think I agree fully with what he says. You have to start somewhere. You have to use what you have, because we can't wait for the government to wake up one day and think, no, this creatives, this invest in them, but you have to really invest in yourself and believe in what you are doing. Be crazy, like be delusional. Yeah. More than anything, community, people are your assets. Use what you have. Yeah. Thank you.
I also agree with what they have both said when it comes to using what you have and being delusional, or I'd say authentic. Just trying not to, like, don't try too hard to fit in, because there's this saying that says, why fit in when you're custom made? You know, because God made you like your own different way, and you really shouldn't have to fit in. But I want to go back to using what you have. The first crochet top that I made was using yarn that I got from the subject consumer science in primary school years ago, and the hook that came with that. I had no money to buy a hook, or to buy yarn, and I made that top and I wore it to school, and a lot of people complimented me on it, and that's how I started receiving orders, basically, and that was basically the launch of my business. And I also want to say, don't be afraid to fail, and when you do, be kind to yourself and learn from it, basically. Yeah.
I think they've said it all. But yeah, I think authenticity, curiosity, and action is the three things I picked up. And I think those are really important to achieving your dream. If you're rooted in who you are and you believe in your craft, be curious enough to pursue it. Be curious enough to learn more about it, to educate yourself, find spaces and avenues to, you know, build on your capacity. I think there are a lot of platforms, even just locally, that you can find on the internet that you can join and participate in. I think I always believe in practical experience. I think you can always, you know, research, go online, see things, but if you just immerse yourself in something, be present and do it physically, I think you learn better that way. At least that's how I learned better. I know with House on Fire, Bushfire, Luju Festival, we have a lot of different platforms for young creatives. There's the Schools Festival, and I know Waterford's been part of that. And it was established because there isn't a formal arts curriculum in a lot of public schools in Eswatini. And that's a really great space to start if you are in high school and you just want to explore what the art scene looks like, what it has for you. I know the Theatre Club has a lot of incredible programs now. They've got incredible funding from UNESCO, I believe. And that's an opportunity to explore. And there's been a lot of effort in revamping that space and making it more accessible. So it's just having your, you know, like finger on the pulse, understanding what's happening around your space. If you're in fashion, I know at the Luju Food and Lifestyle Festival, we have the Fashion Indaba that's happening on the 31st of August. We also have the Food Indaba if you're a culinary enthusiast. You know, we post a lot of things online. Right now, there are a lot of applications open for people who want to attend the Indabas, or if you want to be a sous chef, working with some of the celebrated chefs that are coming. These are experts in the industry, and these are opportunities for you to shadow. So these are the practical experiences that are there. There's call-outs for makeup artists, models, photographers. Yesterday we had a casting for models. We had a lot of models trying out, and I think now it's such an inclusive industry because, you know, they're looking for all body types and personalities and ethnicity, and so yeah, I feel like there's just room for everyone. You just need to be curious enough to look at what's out there and actually take action, to be involved. And yeah, I do agree with the authenticity, because it's so hard to pursue something you have no vision of, like fully understand that this is who you want to be or where you want to go. And if you don't fully understand that yet, then yeah, try everything, explore everything, and then you'll finally find your niche. But yeah, I think importantly, educating yourself and giving yourself the opportunity for practical experience is a good way to start. That would be my advice.
Thank you very much for answering all the questions I had. Now, I want to ask if the audience has any questions for the panelists. Can you please just raise up your hand and I'll pass you a mic. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, you have.
Or motif which kind of has inspired you the most in your filmmaking, something which has kind of led you forward. What would you say?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I think what inspires me the most, it's authenticity in terms of the African culture. So I base my stories on how I grew up and how I see things. So then now it's sort of come as it I'm raising a voice and trying to speak to someone who's out there. So of course it comes with what inspires you, you know. When I look at a picture, especially photography, it comes with a lot of things, and then now my interpretation will be, how do I tell a story? I remember when I first made my first short film, it started as I think there was this vintage pictures by the time being posted, and then there was these two couple, one was carrying a bag and then the lady I think was following. So the film just came out of that, and I just made a film out of that, and it became beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I have two questions. One for ma'am, I forgot the name, but now you selling traditional food and traditional herbs. Who are the targeted customers for your products? And second, I want to ask, I forgot, but Waterford student, how do you feel sitting now here with older people and being, actually you held this and your speech was really good. So how do you feel now?
Honestly, it was very nerve-wracking because these are artists who have been in the industry for a while, and I'm not really known. I'm just a student here, and I've been, although I have worked with Sisegelo Shon, who is an artist in the country, I'm still not known as Wenziwe, and my brand is also not known that well. So I know it was very intimidating to have to be amongst them, but yeah, it's quite a pleasure and a privilege, and I really appreciate it, and I thank the panel forum executive for giving me the opportunity to be here, and yeah.
Thanks, Windsor. Thank you. So yeah, Mongi Botanical is the brand that I work with, and Mongi means one who preserves in Siswati, right? So we work with botanicals, indigenous botanicals that are native, say, to Southern Africa, to create wellness products. And our motivation is really about wellness, like holistic wellness. So the products are targeted at people looking for that, essentially. And we are focused on, before the wellness of you as a person as our target market in terms of commercially, we are looking at how do we regenerate the earth, the nature and the plants. So creating spaces for conversations around education pertaining to plant knowledge. And then from there, because if the world we live in or your environment isn't taken care of, it won't be able to take care of you. So we really targeting, educating people around indigenous holistic wellness, and then the products are basically aiding in that. So we create products that have spiritual focuses, we have physical and mental. And so I think I always struggle with trying to push more on the commercial side, because I'm very passionate about the plant knowledge and the teaching and the educating. But essentially, like something like this is a message in a bottle. By using this product, you have to understand where it comes from, how it's been sustainably sourced, how it gives back to the environment, how it gives, to you. And so when we sell the products in our shop, it's so important that the education comes with it. So it's really for everybody. If you're looking to be more in touch with yourself, with your environment, if you are a steward of the land, if you are looking for better health, holistically, mentally, physically, spiritually, then Mongi Botanical is for you. Yeah, I hope I've answered that well.
This is kind of directed to all the external panelists. As Swazi artists in your own fields and rights, what motivation would you give to fellow smaller Swazi artists who are trying to come out in their own fields and in their own kind of artistic like manners? What advice would you give to us to come out and be comfortable in being bigger?
Okay, I will start. I think for me, I will say learn, do, and then you will find your voice. Because we all start, I started as an amateur. When I watch my first films and things that I did way back, and now I feel like I can go back and do that. But it was that level, you understand? So, and also, don't try to do things perfectly. Because once you want to be perfect, you won't do things. For example, if you do a film, and then you watch it, you feel like, because you have watched so-and-so's films and you feel like, my film is not that great, you understand? You won't progress, because every time you do something, you want to be a perfectionist, you understand? Art comes in mistakes, and yeah, I think you just need to do, and you'll find your voice at the end of the day. And the more you do things, the more you see yourself in that. Yeah.
If I may add, I think it goes back to what we had spoken about curiosity. Be curious, try other avenues, try anything and everything, and what feels right, and then stick to it. And if you feel like you want to change, you should. Like, it's not linear as to this is what exactly you should be doing. You can do like the most outrageous thing, and if it's authentic to you, then okay, you're in your path. I think also don't compare yourself. For me, I think what I use as a gauge or like a scale is how much exhausted I am, or how much at peace I am with whatever I've done. Yeah, that's my advice. Thank you. Exhausted in just expression. Like, I feel like there's nothing left inside of me that I can add to that piece. But it does also come in such a way that, okay, I may shoot something, I feel like, wow, that was a beautiful shot, and then I feel like, maybe I can improve here. So it's a constant, I'm always fighting myself to be better. Like, I don't compare myself, so I'm always trying to better where I am. Like, yeah, add on to that. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Mine is not really a question, but maybe a comment. And first, I'd like to thank Waterford for this kind of initiatives, especially the Africa Week. This is my first time attending the Africa talks or the panels. I always come for the Africa night. But I feel like this is such a very good initiative, not just for the school, but also for the country. And I don't know if you also invite maybe other schools to also learn from this, because it's such a great initiative, especially when it comes to just remembering who we are as Africans, as all these other traditions that we are. And then number two, to Nozipho and the Luji organizing team, thank you for bringing back traditions and traditional in terms of food and culture. I love how you do bring out this, how we used to live, how we used to eat back in the days through Luju, because like you have said, people sometimes think traditional food is for those that are poor. No, it's very good food. It's very good food, especially if you know how to cook it. So thank you for doing that. And then a comment on AI. Please, creatives, I plead you, I don't like AI at all. I feel like it's just stealing the creativity and it's just bringing laziness. I don't know. I don't like it at all. So in as much as it can have good components in it, but just be mindful of how you incorporate it into your creativity and whatever you do to your brand. And also to plead with the country to please support our young creatives. I love what you're doing with Kwasuga Sugela. So if the country can just support these young people that are doing so much, because I think we've seen how the shift has happened in terms of now you go to school, study for 5 years, and then come back, there's no jobs. So these people are actually creating jobs. So if the country can support that. And then lastly, just to say how proud I am to be sitting here as Wenze's mom, looking at her. I'm so proud of this child, guys. You have no idea. She's grown to be such, oh wow. Yeah, thank you, Waterford, for giving her the platform to be, I always say, I love how she is a child. She's just a child and she's exploring everything she can. I sometimes say, where do you get the time to do everything that you do? But thank you, Waterford, and I'm so proud of you, baby.
Hello. My question is to all the panelists, and I was wondering, in your respective creative fields where you are pioneers and the first of your kind, how do you measure your success? And yes, what are the things you look at to decide that I have been successful in my job and in my creations?
Something that Reverend Desmond Tutu's daughter mentioned when she came for the Michael Stern lecture is that we should be the ones to define what success is for us, you know? And that's something that I carried with me from the time that she said it. I think it was around February. And yeah, just trying not to compare yourself, as Snonleto said. Just defining what success is for yourself. Because when you look at standards that are outside of where you are, you like, especially if you don't have certain resources or materials that someone who's a millionaire or in the same industry is doing, comparing yourself to them or defining your success as something that should be similar to their success is toxic. So yeah, I think you should be able to define what success is for yourself. Yeah.
I mean, I would say being invited here today, being here, success. Yeah, because you know when you do what you do and you get recognition for it, that is success. And when you see a shift in mindset where these kinds of topics or avenues are being seen as valuable, I find that I'm successful in what I'm doing. If I can change even one mindset, if I can decolonize a single palette, I see that as success because it's not, it's not something that can be achieved overnight. And so I understand that this journey is one that may be long, but it's not measured by the quantity of people that now start eating indigenous food, but even just that one person who now sees the land in a different lens, I measure that as success. I feel like being able to have a platform to talk about these kind of issues or to elevate Africa and African cultures and traditions to an audience, particularly a young audience, there is I believe and I am confident that there is a mental shift and there's a learning and there's an education that's happening. And that for me, I feel is the measure of success. It's even better if, people take that and start to apply it in their daily lives and there's a change in lifestyle. But yeah, I think having avenues like the festivals Wendy's mom mentioned, even just her comment, just saying, we're really happy to see these kind of platforms reintroducing African foods and elevating them. For me, that speaks to a restoration of dignity for our cultural ways, and that's success, So I'm really, really proud of that, and I feel so successful right now. The road is a journey, right? We'll continue learning and advocating, but I can definitely see a shift, and I'm here for it.
For me, I would say it's seeing myself in a different level in terms of the art that I'm doing. For example, when I started, it's not like now. The access that I have in terms of, for example, crew members that I'm able to collaborate with, it's not like when I started. Now I have more access to people that I'm able to work with and collaborate, maybe even in the country and outside the country. I've created that relationships. And then also the biggest success for me is to see my film in festivals and being in Q&As and talking about my film, how things happened, because I don't see any other success. Yeah, I know money has to be there, but it's not about money at the end of the day. The reason why I started doing film was not about money, because I didn't know where would I get that money, but being able to do the craft and then people appreciating and having to comment about your work, that's success for me.
I think for me, success is measured in sparking a conversation and connection. So if you see my picture and it makes you think and it makes you want to question, it makes you want to talk about it, then that's success for me. If it evokes a certain emotion, that's success for me. I think we can have money as a measure, but it's only fleeting. I think I want my work to stay with you. I want it to make you think differently. I want you to feel seen in whatever way or form. If you're in your human element, you feel like, okay, I feel like I recognize myself in this picture or I relate to it, then that's success for me. Yeah, thank you.
say thank you once again for taking time out of your days to come here and have this conversation. If we could just give the panelists one more round of applause. I'd like to call Andrea up so she can give some closing remarks.
Can we please give them one more round of applause? I think I speak for everyone in the room, and especially my team and I, when I say we were so grateful to have your presence with us and have your wonderful insight on this conversation and on this topic. Before I close, there's just a few more people that I'd like to thank who made this panel possible. Our moderators and our panelists, thank you for sharing your time. Thank you to CMG for their support, and to the Africa Week CEOs and our wider executive team for their guidance and leadership. And a special thank you to my team, Nkosi and Gabby, for their hard work and dedication through this process. We would just like to grace you with some gifts as a token of our appreciation. And then we'll move on to a short game. Thank you.
We'll be playing Family Feud now. So here's how it'll work. So there'll be two teams, and they'll compete trying to guess the most popular answers to survey questions. One player from each team comes to the front for the face-off. Whoever gives the higher-ranked answer earns control for their team. Teams then take turns guessing the remaining answers on the board. Each incorrect guess is a strike, and after 3 strikes, the other team gets one chance to steal by giving one answer they think is still on the board. The team with the most points at the end wins. No calling out answers from the audience. Let the teams do the thinking. Have fun, and let's get started. So, is there anyone from the audience who wants to participate? Guys, we need more people, guys. Energy. Guys, let's try it out. Yes. So I'm thinking the two teams will be. These two panelists and these two panelists, and you guys can choose which students you want on your team. So this is one team, and this is one team. So you already decide, so you're joining them, and then you guys are joining this team. So who's gonna volunteer to come up first? And from this side. Question 1. Name something Africans do best.
Dance.
Dance? Okay. Do you want to try?
Music, make music.
Name something Africans do best.
I'm gonna say food.
to the next question? Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The next two people then? You want to come up?
You have to answer that question.
Yeah, but come up. Come up. And who's coming from your side? Guys. Name an African musician every young African should know.
Burna Boy.
Ooh, that's a good one. Burna Boy.
Brenda Faso.
What did you say? Brenda. To move to this side, does anyone have another answer?
Yeah. Tyler.
I would say Oliver Mtukudzi.
That you should know. Okay, this team can steal.
We're gonna say Uncle Waffles.
No?
Should know or already know?
Ah! Who wants to come up? African fabric. Who else? Name an African fabric.
Masai Shuka.
Can I say Lihia?
Lihia. Can I try?
Shwe.
Sitwash.
Ankara.
Kitenge.
Kitenge. Kitenge. Mud cloth.
Name a popular African food.
Jollof rice.
Pap.
Umpitvo.
What?
Puff Puff.
Umtogo. Ingwangwa.
Oh, shit.
Sweet potato.
Patata.
No? No?
Pilau.
It's not. Unfortunately, we didn't get to finish this question, but we have to wrap up because of time. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who also came up. And thank you to everyone who stayed till the end of the panel. And thank you once again to the panelists. And thank you to the Africa Week team for giving me the opportunity to moderate this forum. Thank you.
Sweet potato, guys. Sweet potato.